Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time of day it is that you are listening, folks. Thank you very, very much for listening. Today is the 22nd of December, year of our Lord 2023. Welcome to yet another edition of The Coping Hour, hosted by Nicholas Hinkle. I got some news. I got something to say. Monday is Christmas. Well, you knew that Monday was Christmas. Sorry. This, if you can believe it, is take number 9 of me just trying to do the first 10 minutes of the show. For a myriad of different reasons, this is take number 9. So I'm having a very raw and authentic moment right now in being frustrated that less than 60 seconds into this take, I already messed it up by being like, my news is that Christmas is now on Monday. It already was, and that's not what I meant. But I'm going to steamroll through the take. What I mean to say is that there will be an episode of the show on Monday. There will be an episode. It will be just like it's not like a holiday episode of anything. It's just an evergreen piece of content, a different idea than what I had before. We're not going to be looking at videos this time. So there will be an episode. But don't listen to it on Monday. Well, maybe you could listen to it if it's when you're you're in the car, going from point A to point B from, where you're going to be spending the holidays, or maybe when you're on your way home. Listen to the Coping Hour. That's when you can do it, but not when you're with your family. That's insane. Well, unless you get like a PS5 and you're like gaming and you're autistic and you need to be even more stimulated, and so you're neurodivergent and you need to be even more stimulated, and so you like put headphones on. And you just need to be listening to something while you're, listen to the Coping Hour. A pro neurodivergent. That's what YouTube needs to add to their analytics, dude. I'm serious. Because I read, obviously, everything that you guys say to me in the comments and like email to me at copinghour@gmail.com. And the amount of you who like bring up your autism. Respect, like we're in the same boat. I don't know for sure. But I've always been like, I know I'm on the spectrum in some way. I know for a fact that I am. And you know what's crazy? I'm into this, what I'm about to do. I love that this is going off the rails in this way. There's something really weird that happened to, who's after boomers? Is that Gen X? That's Gen X, right? Something happened to their brains where they were like sold this bill of like autism bad. It will kill your kid. Huh? Everybody that I know that like is like actually diagnosed neurodivergent on the spectrum, like in some way, is hilarious. They're the most creative people that I know. They're literally the funniest people that I know. But there are also so many people that are like, if they tell their parents like, hey, I feel like I might be like, I kind of want to maybe get this figured out, get like tested for something, takes out whatever. And their parents are like, oh, you do not have autism. They're so like disgusted by the idea that like that means like when people are like, oh, don't get a flu shot because your kid will get autism. Oh, great. So he's going to be like doing a set at like the Laugh Factory on Broadway. It's a beautiful venue. At the Vic, it's a beautiful venue. I'd love to go. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I kind of don't like where this is going, but I don't think it's the worst thing in the world that like more kids are realizing that they are on the spectrum, because it like, even if people, by the way, some people just straight up are not, and they almost use it as like this like vessel to explain bad habits of theirs, which is weird. But for the most part, like there's an awareness to like Zoomers and millennials to an extent, depending on where you are in the millennial curve, There's like an awareness of autism that I think is really, really cool to see. And there's like an understanding of it that, certainly didn't exist even 30 years ago. So that's pretty cool. wild, wild way to go into what I'm about to talk about today. I know the reason that you guys are listening to the show today, or hey, even if you're watching this just as a standalone breakout, I'm sure I'm going to do that in the future. You know, it's because you saw that final score. Yeah. And so now you come to me on the doorstep of Christmas, gun in hand. You look at me and you say, dance, dance. Because you saw that final score from a Jazz team that was on the second night of a back-to-back. That really only has like 3 road wins this year anyways. That was without Talen Horton-Tucker, Jordan Clarkson, and Lauri Markkanen. You're not crazy to think that the Pistons could have won. Vegas thought that they could have won. You know what sucks, man? You know what really hurts? Is that in a moment like this, and you watch your team gain a spotlight that truly nobody wants to have. But by the way, we as Detroit sports fans have already had. The Lions have gone winless. They were the first team to ever do it with like the modern NFL schedule. Now, thank God, since then the Browns have joined us, and we're it's just kind of funny that we're like brothers in arms with that whole thing. It makes sense. If there was any 2 teams that you had to pick who have they never won a game before, you would have picked the Browns and the Lions. Well, that's actually true. And you look at a Pistons team like this, and you say to yourself, if they can't beat a Jazz team on this night, under these circumstances, they literally cannot beat anybody. Because when you look at their schedule, it's bleak. It doesn't look good. There are not a lot. I thought the Atlanta game was like our best sneaky chance. It was our best sneaky chance. A lot of the time, the score didn't indicate that we were in it, but a lot of the time, even when we quote-unquote were in it, we were in it. And then what ended up happening by the end of the game? We lost, but Cade had 43. That's not nothing. That's not nothing. And we covered the spread. Hey, that nothing. But instead, we now have to live with this moment where we are getting more national coverage than we've had as Pistons fans in 15 years, when we were going to 6 straight Eastern Conference Finals. That's the last time you heard anything good out of Detroit. They've been to the playoffs twice since then. They got swept by the 16 Cavs, and then they got swept by the 18-19 Milwaukee Bucks. They ended up losing to who? What? Toronto? They beat Detroit, and then they beat Boston, and then they lost to Toronto, right? That was the Kawhi year, I think, right? Yeah, that sounds right. That makes sense. Now we're seeing House of Highlights and Bleacher Report and ESPN post this team, and it's brutal because and what I'm about to say is it's going to sound like so much cope and you're going to roll your eyes. Please stay with me for 2 seconds. Just stay with me for 2 seconds. The only person that I can give credit to right now is Cade. And the reason that I say that, I don't care about the 43 points in longevity. Like I say, it's not nothing, right? He can score 43 points. Like, that's great, right? Last night at halftime, he's on pace for a 30-point triple-double while still being on pace to lose the game. Like, whatever, dude, whatever. What I'm saying is for him to sit up there, man, get on that podium and, face the music and just be real and, own it and say, we're not 2-26 bad. Like, we're just not. But also, mentally, what are you, you just have to lock in. You just have to. What he's giving us isn't canned. It's not just, athlete speak for, you know what I mean? There's a rawness to it. There's, an authenticity where you feel for him in a way that we haven't felt for I don't want to say a Detroit athlete, because between the Red Wings, Tigers, Pistons, and Lions, we've had plenty of guys walk through these doors that deserve so much more than what we can give them. The Lions are the most tragic example historically. Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson, some of us would throw Matthew Stafford in there, right? And then what happened the first year he went somewhere else? He won a fucking Super Bowl. Huh? We're tortured. I make these videos constantly this season where I try to give you the truest feeling of what, because like, if you think you know what this feels like, and to say this about a sports team, like, fucking relax. But I care. I care a lot about my teams. And I see guys like on like Reddit being like, oh my God, prayer circle, we're on a 9-game losing streak. Fuck off. In my fucking dreams. You know what I was reading when the Pistons were on a 9-game losing streak? I actually think it was somewhere in between that, like 12 to 17. This was like 2 weeks ago at this point. I don't even remember the circumstances. Something had just happened where the Pistons had lost a game that they probably also shouldn't have lost. I don't remember what game it was. And our beat reporters are putting out tweets that the Pistons, and they're not the beat, I'm not blaming the beat reporters for this, but like the Pistons said that they just had the best practice that they've had all season, that this, general core of guys, this is their best 2 hours that they put together since they've gotten together. Cool. Great news. Happy to fucking hear it. Haven't won a game since. I don't care. And it's also wild. At some point, like, it just clicked in my brain. Why am I spending so much time defending Troy Weaver? Why am I spending so much time fucking doing that? Why am I, like, holding out hope in my brain that, like, I'm not being conned? Which, by the way, that's actually not what I'm worried about. My thing is, no one can survive 26 in a row. And if you get to because how it works is, I think the longest single game losing streak in NBA history is 26 consecutive games, but the longest ever, spanning technically 2 seasons, is 28 games. So there are 2 records to break here, right? I would say by the next time you hear from me, a week from today on Friday, that will probably have happened. Unless they pull it off against Brooklyn at home, which I think they could. But we'll see. I don't even want to, whatever. Lose all of them. Fuck them. Right? Who cares? No one survives that. It's crazy to think a head coach could, but with how much money you just paid Monty Williams, like, I would just be shocked, man. I would just be shocked. Because I think what you're going to see here is Troy is going to lose his job. I'm not even going to say anything about Nerlens Noel commenting on, I don't know whose Instagram it was, but commenting that the front office is like holding dudes back. Whatever. Is the dam breaking? Is that what this is? Okay. We'll let that one marinate. Let it cook. And then we'll check that's in a crock pot. We'll check it in a little bit. What's Nerlens Noel? Is he saying anything else? Okay. But you cannot keep Troy Weaver. So what Tom Gores is going to do is if he's going to force Tom to make a trade, if he's going to force Troy to make a trade just to fire him, that's bullshit. Please don't do that. You did that with Stan Van Gundy, and then you just deplete your, like, I get that you want to build a strong team so that you can entice a competent GM. Like, you're not getting Bob Myers. You're just not, right? I know a lot of Pistons fans think that could happen. I would be, Tom Gores loves a big swing, and he will pay anybody. So actually, it maybe isn't that crazy. But it's you would have to create a situation, not just for Bob Myers. What am I even talking about? But for any GM to walk into. So maybe that's the argument to do the trade, right? Or you just give him every asset to work with, and then he can build the team that he wants. But I don't think firing Monty Williams is going to be on the agenda. Even if 28, 29 consecutive losses should be like for everybody. No one should survive that. But I think Monty Williams will, for all intents and purposes. You know who shouldn't? Arn Tellem. Should Arn Tellem be in jail? People are asking. Should Tom Gores be in jail? People are asking. The only thing in my Tom Gores ransom video that I believed was that he should fucking go to jail and try out his prison phones. For, like, gross negligence and, like, slumlording the shit out of the Pistons for the last decade. Sell the team chants live on television. I didn't catch it live. At that point, like, the clock was winding down. I had it on, but I was just kind of, sorry if I just kicked the camera, but I was just kind of watching some other stuff. So I see somebody text me about it, and I was like, on some, send the video. Send the video. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how proud I was of Pistons fans, to be honest with you. And that's the only spin. That's the only positive spin, dude. Is if we're going to get this much media coverage, Tom sees it. Tom knows. You can't sweep this team under the rug. You know what I mean? You can't hide this. You can't hide this. There's not enough window dressing in the world to cover this up. You can beat your face as much as you want. There's not enough foundation to cover the blemish. You know what I mean? I truly want to go 45 minutes on this topic. I do. For the sake of time. I'm like real life. It's crazy. I went from, wow, this sucks. Like my team's losing a bunch of games to I literally don't care. I literally don't care what happens to them. I literally don't want them to win any more games at all. To now that Jazz game like killed me because I was so sold that it was happening. Even when I truly didn't care. I truly didn't care if they won. I don't care about breaking the streak at this point. Make it. Make history. But I just feel, I think we are all trying to be the body language police a little too hard looking at that Cade video as soon as the game ended, you know. Was he crying? I don't know, but he was upset. Don't love that. That's a huge bummer. That makes me so sad to see him that sad. Like, Cade, you're great, dude. And that's what sucks. It's so easy for people who aren't watching them because I'm not even blaming you for not watching them. But it's not him. It's not him, man. Yeah, he turns the ball over. Like he's had some bad turnovers. Yeah, there are moments where it's him, but this is part of a larger thing that does not involve him. It just doesn't. And so that sucks, man. We've just seen this movie too many times in Detroit. We've been down this road too many times. We had a shaky kind of thing with Verlander for a little bit. Like, thank God we just had Miguel. Thank God we just locked him up for like 15 years. And we're like, hey, you're only going to be good for like 3 years of this contract, but that's okay. That's fine. That's pretty much exactly what happened. Sell the team. Alrighty. That was a long-winded segment. So what do you say we do a long-winded email from Blake? Blake has a question. Not really related to this season in particular, but where do you think parity is at in the modern NBA in terms of the league as a whole? What happened to the days of seeing like 4 60-win teams in the league in a year? There is something wild to me about how those teams feel more super and better than ever, how teams feel more super and better than ever with so many all-star team-ups year after year, yet regular season records don't have many standouts anymore. Maybe this is an obvious conclusion to draw, but this feels reflective of the gap between the bottom and the top of the league getting smaller. Or is it more of an injury/load management thing? I suppose this leads to a further question. Is the volatility and parity of the modern NBA preferable to imparity and repeated dominance by some organizations? End of email. Blake, thank you so much for this. It's an awesome question. You know, I was texting some friends last night because while I was watching the Pistons game on Bally at the, on the bottom ticker, they're flashing NHL scores. And I asked them, I was like, why is it that we see way more 6 or 7 goal per game hockey final scores now than we did, like, 15 years ago, like when we were growing up? I was like, did they do something technical, like widen the nets, or like is it just as easy as saying the league got better, like they're a better guy? And they were like, yeah, the league got better. It's they play the game differently. Goaltending like isn't as good. Like it's very top heavy. There are like 2 or 3 guys like goalies every year in the NHL who are like really, really good, and then everybody else is just like fine at best. So I only bring that up to say, I think that kind of goes across the board in sports. The NBA is definitely a suspect here of the league just got better allegations. I hate to say that that's all that it is, because it feels like a cop-out. And in a lot of ways, that is not all that it is. You could also do the whole, like, well, the game is just played a completely different way now. Like, yeah. All this stuff is boring, though. You know what I mean? I think teams also got smarter. I think even the teams who have maybe a disadvantaged roster, there is still a way to sort of manipulate the game to your benefit against some of the giants. Like, there's a reason that when it's March Madness, when it's a 15 over a 2 seed, these Cinderella teams, what do they all do? What's the thing that they all have in common? They are all putting up 53s in that game. They're putting up as many 3-pointers as they possibly can, because that's their shot. That's their best chance. They're not going to get physical with these Duke teams, with these Kentucky teams, these North Carolina teams. They're not. They're all 3 inches shorter and weigh 15 pounds less. So you just got to shoot over the top of them. You know what I mean? That's not to say that the Pistons, it might as well be the 15 seed playing there. They're not even UMBC over Virginia. They're like Robert Morris in any given year, or like Colgate, one of those schools that is like seemingly always the 16 seed. Stephen F. Austin, there's a good one for you. They're usually, that's like a 12 seed though. That's like a 12 seed, like play-in. You know what I mean? To see who's playing 5-seeded Texas A&M or something crazy like that. Anyways, the league got better, and is it better? Is it better that way, or are we more worse for the wear during these dynasty runs? While you're living through those dynasty runs, people will say, yes, this is bad for the sport. People got tired of Cleveland and Golden State starting at the 3rd time they played in a row. The rematch was just awesome. I don't think in any year, I don't think people are going to be upset about a rematch of like if it's Chiefs-Eagles again, you're lying if you're mad about that. You're lying. Like, unless it's just because those aren't your favorite team didn't make the Super Bowl. Like a Lions fan, do I want the Eagles in the Super Bowl? No, I want it to be us. But Eagles-Chiefs would be box office TV, right? A box office spectacle, and the ratings would reflect that. People love that. But once you start to do it more than twice is when people start to go, okay, what the fuck? Me personally, I have gone on the record in the past saying I am a sicko when it comes to dynasties. Truly, in the moment, I love them. I love the villain. I really do. Huge Nick Saban guy. Huge Alabama guy. Like, passively. Like from a distance. Like, I'm not... Like, I would never go to Tuscaloosa and be like, roll Tide, roll, like the way I would for like the Milwaukee Bucks. You know what I mean? Like, I would go and like cosplay as a Bucks fan for a day. I would do it. I wouldn't do that for Alabama, because that's crossing I've drawn a hard line in the sand. You know what I mean? But from a distance, I love greatness. If you want to water it down to that, that's the best that I can do it. Right? I just love the guy that is better than everybody else, coaching the team that more often than not, is better than everybody else. And I love when that team gets doubted, and then that team proves everyone wrong. Golden State did it when they just won the finals. People thought it was over. It was not over. Now, is it over? Yeah, it might be. I think it is. I think it's wild when you watch Golden State on some nights. that you're just like, you're all bad now? Like, huh? When did that happen? I feel so sad and old. I'm only 25. I'm not old. But when did you guys get bad? Huh? It is better for the league, though, when there are more teams that can compete. Phrase it that way, right? If there are more teams, it's why the NFL looks so fun this year. Again, not to turn this back to the NFL direction, but it's wide open. You know what I mean? All the teams that are quote-unquote at the top have gotten holes poked in them throughout the season. Like, we've seen examples of games where all these, the Cowboys just had one, right, against the Bills. And for how many, last like 6 weeks, people have been like every week higher and higher on the Cowboys. Higher and higher and higher. That was the whole season with the Eagles, and then these last 3 weeks happened, you know? Lions have had their fair share. Niners have had their fair share. Dolphins, we could do this all day, right? You know, by the time March comes around, early March, late February, and we have a decent idea of what the playoff picture is going to look like in the NBA, probably going to be able to do the same thing. So far, honestly, like, yeah, the Celtics look awesome. We'll see, though. We'll see. Some of those shot charts look weird. They look really weird. I don't know who else. Let's say Minnesota is like, they're for real. They mean it. And this is just the whole season. They're just really, really good. And they get 57 wins. Even then, you at home, I know what you're going to do. You're going to say, hell no. You're going to say it's Karl Anthony Towns. It's Rudy Gobert. Like, no. We'll see. Right? I think it's only fun. I prefer it this way. Ultimately, is even though I said I love dynasties more than anything, I do always just prefer, you know, even when my team is sitting at the bottom of the league, when you're able to just look around and be like, it could be like 5 or 6 teams. It's easy. You guys keep me on my toes like nothing you've ever seen. Some of the emails that I don't read are wild, but I'm not gonna read this. But I love when you guys, like, play into it, right? You understand the bit. You understand what we're trying to achieve here. We got an email from Nathan. And Nathan says, I figured that in an attempt to send you on a huge zag, I would write in about cross-country skiing. And then, like, really wrote in about cross-country skiing. This is what, like, 2.5 paragraphs worth of cross-country skiing. Nathan. We zag here at the Coping Hour, but this is a zag that I just cannot commit to. Cross-country skiing. I read the email. I read every word of it. It was beautifully written. It was actually probably one of the better written emails that we've gotten on this show. But I got nothing for you on it. I have literally nothing to say. Too hard of a zag. I got, like, whiplash. My ankles, my knees slapped together. Too hard of a zag for us here at the Coping Hour. But you get paid for the attempt, Nathan. So collect your receipt. Send your invoice to the comments. Just because then it pumps my video in the algorithm. Thanks, Nathan. So instead, we're going to read an email from Zach. Subject line. Aaron Fraudgers? Look, we got to talk about Aaron Rodgers' absolutely magnificent conduction of the sports media landscape. There was never a chance that he came back and played. We all knew that, but everyone took the bait and said, oh, Aaron Rodgers might actually be coming back for some late-season action. The grown-ups here can admit we were fooled, but you'll see countless people coping and saying he would have come back if the Jets were in playoff contention. Yeah, let me get 500 cc of copium shot right now into my carotid artery, doc. It's honestly a marvel. The man has learned how to manipulate the entire landscape of sports media on a whim. I don't know what award he should win, but we should make one up for like best con man of the year or something. And to everyone who is still huffing the paint, I'll say this. It's easier to fool a man than to convince a man that he has been fooled. Here's the thing. Here's the issue I have with the email. I'm pretty sure he would have come back. I'm telling you he would have. I'm telling you he would have. Okay? I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's true. But something tells me, I'm serious, this guy had, he had to have had a documentary crew following him around. the entire time during this process, because you know that the holistic shit that he's taking and the ayahuasca that he's drinking and like the insane shit that he was probably doing, right, in order to thwart and disprove and bullshit medical science. I truly believe, dude, in my heart of hearts, that two things are true. One, that if the Jets were in playoff contention on the back of that defense, he would have come back. Okay, if he could have, he would have. But I also just, like, we can't say that he couldn't play. We can't say that. Because, like, he's actually practicing. That's a real thing that's going on. We saw, like, dude, he was off crutches in, like, 2 weeks. Like, what the fuck? This is real. This is, like, he's not just lying to us on his couch on Pat McAfee's show. You know what I mean? He's on boots on the ground in MetLife. We can see him. Eyes on the target. Bogey spotted. But the other thing that's true is you are 100% right that this man he understands how to manipulate. He totally understands what he's doing all the time. He totally understands what he's doing every single week that he would go on these Pat McAfee appearances and say something to, like, stir the pot a little bit, you know. And to your point, convince millions of people, even if it was never true, even if he knew for a fact that there was zero chance that he plays this season, and he was like, let's just manufacture this all season. Let's just make sure that people are still talking about the Jets, even going into the offseason, right? Because once the playoffs start and they're not in there, we're going to stop talking about them. But then eventually it'll be easier to get back on track. It will be, because we spent all season talking about them. And the truth is they still have a lot of interesting things to pay attention to on their team, even though their season it's over. Honestly, I do not have that many takes here. I just think it's funny that I believe everything that you said. I do. Including the part that says anybody who believes that he was coming back, it's cope. But this is the Coping Hour. And it's hosted by Nicholas Hinkle. Aaron Rodgers was definitely going to come back. I said a minute ago that we got one of the better written emails that we have ever gotten on this show, and I didn't read it because it was about cross-country skiing. We got an email here from Luke that, like, legit is on the Mount Rushmore of, I think the entire segment is just this guy's rant, because nobody has emailed in yet that hit the nail on the head as perfectly as this dude did, to a point where I'm like, what do you even want me to say, dude? Like, this is just, so I'm honestly, Luke, I'm letting you get this takeoff. This is your fastball, right? Here's the email. Hey, Nick, Atlanta is a great city. Entertainment, culture, food, and good weather. It also happens to have a major professional sports franchise that can be described, to put it kindly, as disappointing. Sorry, sports franchises, plural. I'm not going to talk about the Braves because, frankly, I don't really care much for baseball. But even they've fallen short of expectations the past couple of years after their World Series win in the playoffs. Well, such is life that the World Series was in the playoff, Luke. What I really want to get at is the unserious Hawks and the Falcons franchises. Falcons just came off of an embarrassing, and then parenthetically, yet very on-brand, close parentheses, loss to the 1-12 Panthers in a pathetic 9-7 loss. What, you're not even going to mention the bad weather? Give Desmond Ridder a break, man. Come on. What did Atlanta do to deserve the Falcons? Honestly, you can point to 28-3 or the fact that we've only seemed to draft amazing skill position players just to not use them. Not to mention the NFC South is dog shit this year, and I honestly believe we have the most talented roster in the division. Whoa. Need a new quarterback, but we might not suck enough to take a high draft pick. Arthur Smith needs to be fired into the sun. And the Hawks, talk about play in purgatory, stellar offense, zero defense. The DeJounte thing has been a total flop, and I keep waiting for DeAndre Hunter and Okongwu to take the leap, and it just never seems to happen. When do we blow it up? I like Quinn Snyder, but it feels like we're just spinning our wheels. Troy has been awesome, and we desperately need Jalen Johnson back. Also, I was white-knuckling in that Pistons game. I don't think my mental health could have handled a Pistons and a Panthers loss. No offense to the Motor City squad. Love the vids. Sorry this is so long-winded, Luke. Literally probably the best email that we've ever gotten on this show, because I think this guy, he covered every single base. He rounded the bases. He took his hat off. He whipped it. Well, He bat flipped. There we go. This was a great email, dude. The wheels are spinning is exactly how you explain the Atlanta Hawks. Quinn Snyder has probably some of the, like, he has to be League Fits certified. I'm not as up to date on League Fits this season. I haven't been paying a ton of attention, but we got to put Quinn Snyder on League Fits because he gets them off. Is Trae Young the most, like, lukewarm most of us are on, like, a quote-unquote superstar, on, like, the face of a franchise? Is he the most lukewarm that we are out of kind of all of them? You know, is he kind of in that, like, Karl Anthony Towns tier, that, like, Rudy Gobert tier? But it's just so, there's so many different reasons why they're, but to me, it's just the same mentally, where you can take them or leave them. You know, I understand and recognize the value that Trae Young will bring to a game. That doesn't mean that it's not really going to bother me when he pulls up from 30. Dude, he makes those shots, and it still bothers me. The same way that it does when Zach LaVine does it. I don't know why. It's just like, if your name is not Damian Lillard or Steph Curry, just please don't. Just please don't. And that's just me being dumb. That's just me being selfish. So let's get back to the actual email here. The DeAndre Hunter thing. Well, my thing is, like, we spent 2, maybe 3 years flirting with the idea of John Collins going somewhere else. Like, that was seemingly in the mix. Trading him was in the mix from the jump, it felt like. And so it felt really anticlimactic to finally get to the end of that relationship, and he ends up getting dealt in what was essentially a salary dump. Oh. That was kind of lame. Okongwu, waiting for him to take a leap. I like him. I think he's a high-energy guy. I think he does the right stuff. If I can get away with sounding like Bill Simmons. He does the right stuff out there. What do you got going with the Hawks? That Panthers game was brutal. Desmond Ridder, there's always that guy in the NFL where you're just like, how does he have a job? Like, how is he starting in an NFL game? I thought that was Sam Howell for a while, by the way. And then this year, he just totally changed my mind. The Commanders haven't won a ton of games, but, like, he's going to give you 300 yards and, like, 3 touchdowns, like, every other game. It's sick. 300 yards is basically every game, but 3 touchdowns like every other game. He's been fun. But you said that the Falcons have the best roster in the division. Yeah, Drake London's cool. Kyle Pitts is cool. Bijan Robinson's cool. Cordell Patterson's cool. I don't hate the take. If I really thought about it, like, whatever, I'd probably still pick the Saints. But, like, I get your point, though. I get your point. There's an argument to be made that you are, like, a Justin Fields away, which honestly has been my take for, like, a year now, that the Falcons they need to be the ones that go get Justin Fields. They need to be the ones that go and save him. I think that would be so much fun. I think that offense would be, like, must-see television, right? How do you make the Hawks box office? I'm just trying to think of, like, who would it be fun. Honestly, would they be the ones that would be most fun with, like, OG or Pascal? That could be fun. I am not saying the Kings are... Nobody's going to do this. This trade's not going to happen. I'm just throwing this out there. Keegan Murray on the Hawks? Could you imagine him and Trey? Although, I actually like it better with De'Aaron Fox anyways. I like Keegan Murray and De'Aaron Fox better anyways. It would still be good, but... My whole thing, I do kind of want to do a quick spiel on this. Why would if the Kings trade Keegan Murray, which they're not going to, but the fact that that's even, like, being toyed with in the media, at least, is just like, didn't you guys just do this with Tyrese Halliburton? And the gamble paid off, by the way. Like, even maybe you still would have been just as good with Tyrese Halliburton, but for all intents and purposes, the Kings are really good. The trade worked for both parties involved. It was just a win-win trade, right? I think you kind of caught lightning in a bottle. Please don't do that twice with Keegan Murray, because I don't know if you saw him with Keegan Murray, but he can score in the post. Could you have imagined if the Panthers beat the Falcons and then the Pistons beat the Hawks? That would have been incredible. They are kind of a fantasy football nightmare, though, aren't they? The Falcons. How many weeks was it this year that, Drake London owners, Kyle Pitts owners, Bijan Robinson owners were like, what the Arthur? Come on, throw me a bone. Some of it is like they literally, like Desmond Ritter or Taylor Heineke just like cannot get the ball to any of these guys. They just like can't. Is Atlanta a sneaky purgatory? Is basically what this guy's bringing up. No, because the Braves are like actually good. Even if they like fall on their faces and like disappoint, they are, you know, they're still recently good. Hawks, you know, they're always in the mix for the playoffs. For the playoffs. What was the closest they've been? They got killed by LeBron when they won 60 games. Oh, when Trae Young stepped on the ref. Yeah. And then it like messed up his ankle. Wasn't that in game 1? Or am I thinking of when James Harden got hurt in game 1? And then that was the next series against the Hawks, that Trae Young. That still happened. That was a thing that happened. And what's his take on that now? If that didn't happen, the Hawks win that series and then they run the table? No. Brooklyn was the only way that Milwaukee was going to lose. They just were. But that injury didn't hurt. I remember in real time I was like, championship teams get lucky. The Bucks just got really lucky. That's a horrible break for Atlanta. Anyways, this is an amazing email. Thank you for sending it in, dude. Joshua checking in to the coping hour. Hi, Nicholas. My name is Josh, and I'm enjoying the show. I have my YouTube channel called redacted. I did not see an invoice attached to this email. I plan on starting a podcast next year. Do you have any advice on how to find your voice in the sports media industry? And what are your thoughts on how YouTube content creators like Kenny Beecham and yourself have brought life back into the sports media world? I am currently a freshman in college majoring in communications, so any advice helps. Thank you for your time and inspiration. Sincerely, Josh. Josh, thanks for the email. Once a month, or maybe every other month, I do like to try to, because we get a lot of these emails, I try to sort of give my best fastball in terms of advice. The truth is, if a lot of you guys don't know this, when you guys bring up college and stuff, sometimes I get a little bit like, I don't know how to help you at all, because I didn't do that. I dropped out of high school. So it's hard for me to like tell you, because some people have been like, what should I major in this or should I major in this? This guy's got that figured out, thank God, doing communications. Usually it's like communications or like a lot of marketing majors checking in too. Anyways, how do you break in? What's the secret? How do you become famous? How do you get to Hollywood? I'll tell you my thoughts on Kenny Beecham. First of all, by and large, like the best, like the proverbial YouTube content creator. Like it's just him. The Mount Rushmore is Kenny Beecham with making 4 different faces. You know what I mean? Sorry, Jacob, aka Rusty Buckets. It's 3 Kenny Beechams and 1 Rusty Buckets. There you go. But I think, and I would give Jacob credit for this too, actually, is they made it really easy to feel like any guy can do this. And I truly mean that in the most endearing way. Where when you watch their videos, and I know Jacob now especially likes to do the more sort of buttoned up and like sort of more scripted and like rehearsed and like, I guess if you want to call it more cinematic content. So his is a little bit more different now, but there are plenty of instances of him and Kenny especially where it's like you're literally just listening to some guy talk to you about what they think about basketball. You know what I mean? That is what is endearing to people in the year of our Lord 2023 is the guy that it just feels like you're having a conversation with. You know what I mean? That's a huge bit of advice that I have to anybody. Whoever you are, truly, that's what you want to represent on camera. Don't be the guy that you think people want to see on TV, because that's how you end up being something that you're not and that you don't want to be. You know what I mean? If you in your heart are the analytical type and you love getting into these numbers and you love finding these patterns and shit, let your content reflect that. There you are. Boom. There's your niche. There you go. That's what you do. You know, or you end up like me and you think that that's what people want, is they want the analytical guy and they want, because the way that I did it at the beginning was I tried to make it as digestible as I could while also making it seem like I understood the logistics of like basketball and like the rules. Like I was really hell bent on making sure people understood that I knew what I was talking about. And then that worked, but which is antithetical to the point I'm trying to make. But so don't do that, because it fucks with you mentally and you don't know when to turn it off. That is something that I really struggled with. And that is like super far down the line. That's something I don't even need to get into right now, is like learning how to sort of differentiate your on camera or like behind a microphone persona and like you in real life. A lot of you are never a day in your life going to have that issue, and you're going to be able to just talk into a microphone and always be yourself. But when you like characterize yourself, I guess it's just the Gemini in me. Anyways, what you never want to be is the guy who's just saying the most absurd take that you can possibly think of. And you probably think, well, that sounds pretty obvious. But it's really easy when you get into this mode. You know, you said you're starting a podcast next year. That's awesome, dude. I love that you're like, I'm not starting now. I got to, get some things situated. I'll start it next year. Like you're doing you're planning it really, really well. Anytime I've ever started a podcast, I came up with the idea that day. I'm like, I need to get these takes off like today or I'm going to fucking explode. But it's really easy when you have that like, okay, I'm doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Boom. And you'll crank through it for 2 weeks, right? And all your little anecdotes, all your little stories and shit, you'll pump out a bunch of them. And you'll fill those 2 weeks, and then you'll get to that Monday episode, and you'll think, like, I'm kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel here early on. And you're going to throw some stuff together in your head where you're like, I guess I can talk about this. But it's when you have nothing to talk about that you really need to check yourself. Because that's when you're going to come up with the most absurd shit that you think might get people talking. It's the reason that late July, early August, as a content creator, is the worst. As it pertains to the NBA, is the worst. Literally nothing's going on. Summer League's been over for a month at this point. Free agency, like the only things going through are like mid-levels or like two-way deals. Like there's just nothing interesting. If we're lucky, there's like an NBA player holding the trade market hostage, and like we have that avalanche to look forward to. But then that just generates a bunch of lame speculative content that, it's 10 of the same video. You know what I mean? So that's when you really got to check yourself. And you got to say, is what I'm about to create going to ruffle feathers just for the sake of ruffling feathers? Right? Don't make content for the SEO. That's what you don't want to do. Your content can and should, quote unquote, be SEO friendly, but that's not who your best friend is. Your best friend is the audience. And there are two things that are true. The audience is the dumbest person in the room and the smartest person in the room. They have no idea what they want while also knowing exactly what they want and what they don't want as soon as they see it. It's such a beautiful relationship, right? And as somebody who often feels like I'm an audience to myself, I know that for a fact. I don't know if you've ever seen me punt on a bit mentally while I'm in the middle of it and then kind of slog my way through the rest of it. Go back and watch the Pistons video I uploaded, like the Detroit Pistons will make a trade for ... Go to the Kyle Kuzma section. I didn't buy into it at all. That's something that's important too that I love to talk about. You have to believe in what you're making. Again, another thing that might sound simple on the surface, but it's true. I shouldn't punt on bits in the middle of them. I shouldn't. Because then it like kind of creates this like uncomfortable, like weird, awkward tension. Most people are probably double tapping, skipping 10 seconds. It's true. There's something that there's something. Do not let numbers bother you. Do not let analytics bother you. Because when you first start and those numbers first become available to you and they're not what you want them to be, it's such a weird feeling. And then eventually you just grow and it's like whatever. You're like very whatever about it. You have to contextualize them also in some way. You know, and I don't want to just give you boring advice like, well, you know, make sure your thumbnails are extra good, because I don't know if you guys have seen, but I don't care about thumbnails, right? I had somebody comment the other night. They were like, hey, dude, and they were very respectful and polite about it. They were like, hey, maybe change your thumbnails if you want people to see your videos more. And I was like, if my thumbnails were anything else, they wouldn't be mine. That's what I care about, is that the mailman trying to get in here. That's what I care about. I have to buzz him in. There's your advice, man. Good luck. I am going to cheat a little bit, because on Monday I recorded a little, we got like an emailer chiming in, and I recorded something that I then for some reason just didn't put in the episode. I just forgot to put the clip in the episode. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to splice it in to end today's show. And I'm only chiming in right now to say I'm just setting it up, because I didn't want to just abruptly switch to it and then like the continuity changes and I'm wearing a different outfit and the lighting is different and the camera's a little bit different. So I'm only here to say this is how we're going to end today's show, is a segment from Monday that I forgot to upload. And this upcoming Monday on Christmas, I will see you guys again. I love you all. Enjoy the last segment. And I'll catch you all in the next one. So this guy sent in an email. Paul, I don't think you intended for this to be read on the show. I think maybe you were just saying this just to me specifically. But I think it could actually snowball into something like a nice little 5 to 7 to officially close out the show. So we're going to give it a shot here. Hi, Nick. First, I am honored to be the only emailer you replied to about the Bears game. When I heard you say that on Coping Hour number 10, I ran to tell my girlfriend like I was 5 and I had just met Santa at the mall. And then parenthetically, he put, least parasocial comment, by the way, close parenthesis. This is exactly who I make shit for. Like, ultimately, it's me that I make shit for. But, like, I love that, because how I try to do this is as somebody who has grown up like with like consuming content creators nonstop since I was like fucking 9, right? And I mean, now that's like nothing, right? Because kids, but I'm just talking about how the internet was like a new thing and content creators were like a new thing when I was growing up, right? Obviously it's the norm now, but my brain was wired in a way where, like, you talk about like being parasocial. Yeah. That relationship between creator and viewer is fascinating to me. I love it, because like the serotonin rush that I get when my favorite creator reads my comment or like acknowledges that I'm like, I'm like, oh my God. And then that person like is more endearing to me, because I'm like, man, they're so cool. Like they talk to their chat, you know, stuff like that. That's why I love to do, like, I read your email, I say thanks, you know, Paul, or thanks Ethan, or thank whatever your name is, because it's like, you know, thanks for helping out. I don't know. Like I don't know how to, I guess, how to articulate this. Let's just get back to the email. But I'm happy to hear that, dude. I just wanted to write in and say I had a great time in your city. Soldier Field was a really cool atmosphere, and the Bears fans were actually pretty cool outside of one guy that immediately wanted to fight me for an unknown reason. This guy went to the Lions-Bears game. Was listening to Coping Hour 11, and you were talking about a Christmas market that you went to, and I was curious if you have been to the Wrigley Christmas market. So I haven't. I live right next to it. I live like right next to Wrigley. So we went to the one that was downtown. I think I said it was off of Clark and Randolph. And then I think State Street's like, it's right off of State Street too. Anyways, I'm pretty sure it's all run by the same company. So like if you've been to one, you've kind of been to all of them. Like the one in Wrigley obviously has the Ferris wheel. The one I went to does not have the Ferris wheel. Stuff like that will be like, you know, it'll be marginally different. But I think all in all, it's basically the same thing. We will probably do the Wrigley Field one though. Now, what I like about this guy, and the only reason that I'm reading this email, and I guess I can cut it off here, but he did mention the Billy Goat Tavern, right? So this guy has given me some of his travel wrecks after visiting our fine city of Chicago. You know what I've learned is there are like 2 tiers of tourism in Chicago, and maybe there's a third one that I just haven't tapped into yet. So I've lived here for like almost 4.5 years. So not too long, but like in my quote unquote adult years, this is just where I've spent my time. And by the way, they're doing construction outside, so I apologize if that's picking up on the mic. If it is, that's going to really bother me. But I hope it's not, so fingers crossed. But what I've learned is the first tier is just the really general, you stay downtown, you do Mag Mile, you know, do a bunch of shopping, you do the Sky Deck up in Sears Tower, and you probably do like the architecture tour on the river, right? That's like general tourist stuff. You know, Field Museum, aquarium, stuff like that. Art Institute. Still haven't been to the planetarium. That's the first tier. That's what most people do. It's a beautiful city. You should do that stuff. But then there's that second tier when people come back here and they want to experience more local stuff. And they want to kind of and you could argue that this is going to be the case anywhere that you go, but I'm just giving you examples of what it's like for Chicago specifically, right? So when you come for the second time, and I'm not saying this guy only came for the second time, you know, I don't know. Billy Goat Tavern. You're like, man, Lower Wacker, like this place is crazy. They're slinging cheeseburgers down here? Yes, they are. Wiener Circle, I think, is the biggest one in Lincoln Park. I think that's probably the big, and then I'm trying to think of like Mr. Beef is maybe another one, or if you want maybe Al's Beef even. Portillo's is probably something you get on the first time that you're here. You know, when you're doing like architecture tour shit, you're probably getting Portillo's and like Stan's Donuts. But the second time you come here, it's Mr. Beef, it's Wiener Circle, it's Billy Goat Tavern. You know what I mean? What would the secret third tier be? I'm really trying to think. Is that like you get an Airbnb in Lakeview? You're staying in a condo in Lincoln Park? That's all I got for that. I got nothing.
Beautiful, beautiful. Primary control. Beautiful. Primary control. Beautiful. Primary control. Beautiful.